What's going on, guys, gals, and everyone in between? You are on the sidelines with the Sideline guys. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by some esteemed co hosts. Co hosts, you can see me on another really awesome podcast on the OTS network called Realish With, as well as, of course, a distinguished guest, the podfather himself, Derrick Myers, and my guy, Matt Tirado. How's it going, you guys?
Doing good, man. Great to see you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, sir. Glad you can be back on the show with us, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Love it.
Yes,
All
I love to throw a good double oop and just see who comes down with it, right? Sometimes you don't know exactly who's gonna come down with it, but looking forward to getting into all things week two here on the NFL edition, of course. But this week we're gonna also be discussing the fallout, of course, from week one's injuries and the fantasy implications, and then finally get into our week two predictions. But before we get into all of that, we just want to remind you all to make sure that you're following us on all social media platforms, OTS Media Co. and then OTS Media on YouTube. Make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribed, and you're hitting that notification bell so you can get all the updated news for when we're dropping our new shows, man. And it's action packed at this point. It feels like we have more show release days than we have actual days at this point. So make sure you're getting all of that awesome news right to you. But with all that being said, I wanted to ask you guys, ha- it's very unfortunate all the different injuries that we had falling out from even before week one, which we'll get to. But I'm curious, in any of your fantasy leagues, were you in a position where you had to hit the waiver wire this early? And if so, who were you looking at and why?
That you got.
Yeah, I think so I was pretty fortunate. So we did an auction draft in one of my leagues. And I went all in on Saquon and Austin Eckler, AJ Brown, CMC. So the only one I traded Saquon away for Darren Waller, Stevenson, and Jahan Dotson. So I felt good.
Wow.
And then now this report came out about Darren, saying that he's suffering from a hamstring injury, and that it's not only just a ordinary hamstring injury; it might be actual nerve damage. So there's a certain point where he may be put on IR. This is a very similar injury to what he suffered from last year. So I had to find my boy Sam Laporta, who had a decent performance last week, and hopefully he'll do me some justice in case Waller ends up having injury that's probably as bad as we suspect.
Yeah. Um, J.K. Dobbins got me. Um,
Mm.
that one got me good in one league. So I had to go get I was Algier from Atlanta. Um, and then also Travis Kelsey. Travis Kelsey, of course, missed week one. So I was like 2, 3 leagues that I'm in that have him, and those all got rocked. But I think I only lost in one matchup that he was out of the lineup for. So I'm actually not too mad. I think Brandon Cooks is out with a knee thing now. So
Mhm.
Mm.
I'm thinking about like three leagues that have him as well. So I mean, that's pretty much it. I was fortunate that some of the guys that I passed up on, you know, just aren't on my team right now. So and they're out with injuries. So right now we're sitting good.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that makes sense that you guys are all in standard leagues too. I know I'm the only one in a dynasty league here. So funny enough, I already had Puka Nakua on my team. So everyone's like scrambling to try to find him.
Oh,
I had him
nice,
already because that's how
nice.
deep the rosters go in dynasty. So it was good to see obviously someone you're not expecting any kind of production from throughout the whole year. I had him on my what's called the taxi squad, which technically are players you won't even play, right? If you take them off the taxi squad, then they're on your roster. So I just took them back to the regular roster. I just want to see, right? Just want to gauge interest because some people are willing to jump off the deep end for some early production. So I think that's a good name to look at. As far as other notables, obviously the Gus Bus. Gus Edwards is obviously a big pickup with the unfortunate injury news. Once again, just feels cursed at this point, man. Really feeling for J.K. Dobbins with that.
Yeah.
But other notable injuries, right? We've got Aaron Rodgers also out with that same Achilles tear, unfortunately. Literally a couple plays into the drive. I mean, all the memes are out already, right? With him running onto the field with the flag, and then that being his highlight reel for the season. Just a tough break, and the fact that they still won week one is actually pretty hilarious. But how do you guys feel like that's going to affect their plans to hopefully contend for a Super Bowl later this season?
Did you actually have contending?
Well, that's their plans, right?
That's their plans.
That's what
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
asking.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
how does that affect what you see their
Yeah.
plans?
Obviously Aaron Rodgers is not going to be there, so I think look, if Zach Wilson actually does what he was drafted to do, which I'm not sure how you guys felt about his performance, but he actually played a little bit better than what we've previously seen him play as. So um I think Aaron Rodgers' impact with him was very, very good. So I doubt they still have the same output with Wilson as they would have with Rodgers. But it'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of the season, because if they're able to make the playoffs with Wilson leading the charge, it's going to be interesting to see what the conversation is after that. Do you extend Wilson and keep him behind Rodgers, and when he comes back from injury, or do you trade him? Like, do you sell high on his value at that point? It'd be interesting to see what happens. I think Brees Hall is going to eat, though.
Yeah.
This is that's one of that's the other part of this whole fantasy implication thing, is that he looked good. He looked really good Monday. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm curious. Sorry to cut you off, man. I'm curious how the workload sharing goes there. I feel like coming into yesterday, it was more so like a bigger plan to go in on Dalvin Cook, but then obviously the more splash plays you're getting out of Brees Hall, so could be forcing the hand a little bit there. I just always kind of assumed that they'll take it a little bit easier with him, considering he's coming off of that injury, but looked explosive as hell once he got past that initial tackle. Crazy, the two big runs he was able to run last night. And if he could do that, you would assume with more touches he'll get even more yards, right? So I just feel like long term though you might want to hold him back a little bit, just because you don't want to end up in that same place, right, where injury prone position, just continue to sort of hammer a guy out there, and then eventually it all catches up to him. So I'm interested to see how that plays out throughout the season, how they manage their workloads together. But what were you about to say, Matt?
Yeah, I think, look, Aaron Rodgers is special for a reason. I know he was coming off one of his more mediocre seasons. Definitely had a lot of issues, specifically with his deep field accuracy. A lot of instances where he was just whiffing on wide open receivers or tight ends. But all that being said, is Aaron Rodgers. And I think he worked. I mean, if you watch Hard Knocks, you could definitely tell he developed a camaraderie with a lot of his teammates, especially that of Garrett Wilson, a connection that I think many of us were looking forward to see. But I think ultimately this doesn't, affect their playoff chances. I think they had the defense to really keep them into some close games. And I honestly don't expect Zach to be operating the way that he usually did, or to just let him, mindlessly run around and throw a bunch of interceptions. I think he's learned quite a bit under Rodgers, so I expect us implementing a lot of the quick passing games, run a very vanilla offense, and just find ways to get the run game going. I think Brees is obviously, as the season progresses, you'll see more of that explosiveness. The 80-yard one, I think you could definitely tell that his leg was giving out a little bit. Sort of near the end there, which allowed Christian Benford to catch up to him. But I think all that being said, it's nerve-wracking if you're a Jets fan, but I don't think it means that their playoff chances are lost. They still have the roster to make make it a competition, especially in their division.
Yeah, definitely. I
Yep.
think they don't really fall off much with Zach Wilson. Even obviously last year, he's one of the I think the worst starter that got significant minutes as far as playing as a starter in the most games. Like he did terribly last season. So I'm interested to see whether or not he was able to build off of that. Because the fact that they were immediately searching for another quarterback that is never a good look, right? You want to feel like there is some security at least with your second string quarterback, and it feels like there is none. So I'm sure they're feeling missing out on Mike White right now, definitely. But something I wanted to ask you guys as far as the development, obviously in New Jersey, I was about to make the mistake of saying New York. In New Jersey, there is turf on the field, but then across the league, the real story is whether or not there should be turf in any of these NFL stadiums, and a lot of the players' preferences seem to be grass. It also had come out that Roger Goodell had mentioned that there actually are going to be looking into this to see quote unquote what the science says on this. So I mean, as of everything I have heard from players speaking about this, it seems like they prefer to play on grass. But I'm curious moving forward whether or not this actually becomes a real narrative, right? Where before the game starts, we got to make the asterisk of saying, hey, yeah, these guys are actually playing on turf. So let's not expect everyone to come out of this healthy the way we normally would.
Yeah, I mean the executive director for the NFLPA, Lloyd Howell, said that it's like the easiest decision the NFL can make, right? Like the players, if the players want it, and it's what helps keep, you know, or they feel that they're playing better on grass than they are on turf, and there are fewer injuries than turf. I think it's something you should actually do. One of the things that Howell actually said was that he finds it interesting that um, these stadiums can flip over to superior grass surfaces when the World Cup comes or soccer clubs come to visit for exhibition games in the summer, but inferior artificial surfaces are acceptable for our own players, which I think is very interesting too, because if you're talking about wanting to put out a quality product and the players of your sport are saying they want to have this specific field, it's something you should have been looked into, not just kind of like act haphazardly with it, right? Now I know that there's been a lot of um a lot of talk on it because of Aaron Rodgers now this week, but you know this is something they've been wanting for the longest time. I don't understand why they're dragging their feet on it. But I think if this should be in the whole bargaining as well. I think if there's another collective bargaining agreement that they need to go ahead and include this in on those kind of discussions. You know what I'm saying? Because you can't act as if this is what you want for your players. You want your players to be safe, and if they're saying that this is the one thing that helps them play in a safer manner, you don't give it to them.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and you saying that, this reminded me of all the different injuries that occurred last year. I mean, I'm sure each of us can list off ACL tears, but the one that stood out to me, and this is perhaps a bad example because I believe this was the London game for the Vikings versus Saints. And so if I'm not mistaken, they use artificial turf in that game. And if I'm wrong, obviously, please feel free to correct me. But there was literally a play where I think it was on special teams, just Vikings players' foot clamped and like his leg like discombobulated. You
mm-hmm.
know, you hear that a lot. And especially if you're really if you're any player, right? If you're trying to make a sharp cut on a route, or you're a corner and you're trying to get to somebody who did an inside move on you. I mean, if your cleat gets stuck in the wrong position, I mean, your career could be over. And that's not right. You have players who have spent their very lives training to be on the NFL, to be on the spotlight, to make their families proud, and for the NFL to wait until an injury happens to a very significant player like Aaron Rodgers is kind of this nonsensical because to your point, Derek, this has been a consistent issue for years now. So I just hope that they evaluate it, they just make the investment. I know it's more difficult than artificial turf because you have to tend to the grass, but obviously as long as you hire workers accordingly and you pay them, reasonable rates and so forth, then it should be a very easy decision to make, in my opinion.
Yeah, as long as you
Yeah,
don't
for
have the
sure.
groundskeeper for the Super Bowl this year
Oh, here we go.
attending it.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming at some point, right? It had to. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the general consensus is that turf is easier to upkeep, and that's why those couple. I think it's only four NFL stadiums. Obviously, one of them, two teams play at, so it forces more games to be there. But not many stadiums do use turf, but the ones that do are kind of firm and like, hey, but it saves us money. So I think it is kind of interesting though that the league would mandate something like that. Like I feel like in general, across sports in general, there is sort of a variance of options, right, with certain different things. And it's rare for the league to come out and say from now on everyone has to do this and here's why. So I think the fact that the conversation always goes here is important, but
Yeah,
I think it's important that you mentioned this to me earlier, Derek. It's like, yeah, that all means something, but J.K. Dobbins had the same exact injury and he was on grass, right? So
yeah,
there's only a certain amount of things that are actually in our control that we can mitigate here. I think the fact that you're going to war every play, no matter what, it's not going to be good on the body, right? So,
right.
but once again, if there's something that is sensical, right? And I think this issue is very within grasp as far as being something easy to change, then it makes sense. Make sure and do it, especially if the players are asking for it. But what's annoying is like you guys said, right? We had to wait this long for this to happen, and who knows whether or not it would have made the difference last night, right? But
Hmm.
now we'll never get to know. So hopefully, moving forward, that all becomes observable, right? And we could see
Hmm.
if they do make the change fully, if the intended effect takes place or not.
Yeah. Do you think if um if this happened to Tom Brady, do you think that things would have the conversation would have been like, oh, like immediate change, or do you think they would have had the same kind of lax approach to it?
That's a good question. I feel like nobody is Tom Brady, so that's a hard thing to
Yeah.
ask, but it is Aaron Rodgers, right? So it's not
Right.
like this is an insignificant injury in that way either.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I don't think it has to do really with the player. I just feel like this is the perfect storm, as in this is a conversation that has already been happening for a couple years at this point. So just one more thing to point to, in my opinion, versus just it being a certain person and them being willing to shut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll play devil's advocate here. I think potentially, right? Because we hear so many stories of ACL tears or just very graphic injuries taking place on the field for every kind of player, you know. But more often than not, it isn't until the most recognizable ones is when a certain issue is brought to light or is more addressed. And so if I can guarantee you that if Tom Brady were to have gotten injured in that same fashion, there would be a very quick response issued by the NFL, and then they would say, "Oh, we're gonna, I promise, we're gonna look straight into this. This is something that's been in conversations for years now." No, it hasn't. You just waited until in this case, that you waited until one of your poster boys got injured to make a statement, even though hundreds of players have gotten injured and you've done nothing. Like no matter who you are on the football field, you're still human beings. They're still players. They're not more important than the other. That's why we have teams. So but it is interesting what you brought up though, Derek. I'm confident that they would have said something. They would have done something right away. I guarantee it.
But man, with all that being said, the unfortunate reality of this game is there's no way to avoid this in totality, right? So we might as
Mhm.
well get the dumb ones out the way, right? Get the silly ones out the way so that the real unfortunate ones are the only ones left. But with all that being said, I think it's appropriate that we move on to week 2. Some notable things, right? At the moment, Cooper Cup is still listed as being out, right? But things aren't looking as bad as initially thought, so that's exciting. Travis Kelce is on set to come back this week, right? So we're getting some good injury news as well. It isn't just sadness, but it has been feeling like a lot of fucking sadness. I'll start by saying, obviously, last week wasn't the best week for either of us. I'll be frank, but Derrick coming out the gates hot with a 1 point lead. He's sitting at 9-7, while I am sitting at 8-8 for our picks for this season. Time to get serious. Time to figure this out for this week. Our Thursday game, we start at the link. We got Vikings coming up against the Eagles. I'm gonna throw to Matt with this one just because we know how homer we get on this side of town. But Matt, I gotta ask you, are we hitting the panic button on the Minnesota Vikings after their week 1 loss to the Bucks?
Yes.
All right, please tell
And
me.
I think they are a terribly overrated team. I think last season was a fluke. I've never seen a team more lucky in my entire life, genuinely. And I know this may be unfair analysis because how do you evaluate luck when you're discussing teams? But they had multiple one possession games that they won. They got blown out by the Cowboys. They got blown out by the Packers. And I'm forgetting their other loss, but it's just they have so many weaknesses, specifically on that defense. Their depth is so unimpressive, and their offense on paper is fairly decent. I think their running back Madison is not too shabby. I Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are a great wide receiver duo, but their interior offensive line has been such a problem for them. And when you consider their pass rush that they're going against, I know Fletcher Cox is questionable right now with a rib injury, but they have Jalen Carter. Like it's just they can't handle elite defensive lines. They just can't. And especially on defensively when again they were debatably the worst unit in the NFL last season. I think they were the worst unit in the NFL last season. Like they're just not a team that can handle elite ones. Last season I genuinely think was a fluke, and I expect them to be a huge disappointment, like in comparison to the last season. So those are my thoughts on the Vikings, and I guess with all that being said, I think you probably assumed that I want to go with the Eagles, and you're right, definitely right. Definitely to the Eagles in this matchup.
I like it, man, because I was gonna come with the follow up, and you didn't even give me a chance, right? Just like I'll answer all the questions before they even arrive. Real Belichickian approach here. I like it. I agree though. I think we made a lot about the Vikings' luck last season and whether or not they'll be able to repeat as far as their outlook for this season. I mean, they had a Herculean effort from Justin Jefferson last week, and they couldn't figure it out. That game didn't feel like the Bucks won it, right? It just kind of felt like it was a matter of letting somebody stick around, and then eventually the sort of well broke open, and obviously that does not fare well. But I'm gonna be honest, the Eagles offense did kind of confuse me a little bit too, right? The defense were
Sure.
putting on last week and put them in a position to really be up big early, and it just felt like the entire league was a little rusty, right? So can't talk too much crap, but those are the things that I'm looking out for in this week. As far as this matchup goes, I agree with what you said as far as their pass protection specifically. Like I feel like they're gonna have nightmares trying to figure out what to do against Philly here. I'm just interested in whether or not they can really get anything going here. Like I feel like Slay has looked really good on
Yeah.
that side and is sort of just locking things down. And then obviously there's other guys for the Vikings when it comes to the passing game, but um it's just a matter of time until someone gets to your quarterback. And I do feel like more so than the last couple years that there might be a little bit something to the idea that Kirk Cousins is regressing a little bit. I think we'll know more so later on in the season. But just from what I'm seeing, I think there might be some real smoke to that fire. So I'm definitely going to be picking the Eagles. I would have picked the Eagles last week. I would have picked the Eagles at the beginning of last season. So yeah, I have no reason to not be confident in this. Derrick, how are you feeling about your Birds after week one?
Yeah, so the offense was rusty. I think uh Devontae Smith, of course, looked, like himself. AJ Brown looked like himself a little bit as well. I think it was just it was interesting because I think it was both rust and play calling. They have a new offensive coordinator. So I think that's they're still kind of trying to get used to certain things. But yeah, they didn't play preseason, so rust is expected, to be honest. And you saw that, like you said, Chris, all across the league. Anyway, I didn't put much stock into that. It was just rust. Rust is rust. They got to get out there and play, so they'll get it knocked off. I think, of course, I'm taking the Eagles in this matchup. But the crazy thing is, the Vikings already ruled out their center, Garrett Bradbury, their left tackle, and their defensive end, Christian Darrisaw and Marcus Davenport are both questionable. So you already talked about the offensive line, right? The offensive line is going to have a lot to handle tomorrow if your center is already out and your left tackle is questionable. Even if he's playing, he's still questionable. That's still a soft spot on that line. So yeah, I'm expecting Jalen Carter to put on a show. I'm expecting that whole D line to put on a show. Um, Even if Fletcher Cox isn't out there, you still have a whole a monster of guys coming at you, and I think that it's going to show the depth that the Eagles have on defensive line anyway. So James Bradbury is out for us. So yeah, Kenneth Gainwell, but I'm not expecting that to really show. I think one of the biggest things that you didn't see too much of was DeAndre Swift, which I found very, very interesting. So, Nick Sirianni has spoken out about it already, and said that was unacceptable. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he said something about that last year about someone else. I forgot who it was, but the very next week they were deep into the play call. So I'm expecting DeAndre to have a huge night tomorrow night. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how they rally, because I think one of the big things is that you can win. It was an ugly win, but you can win in various on various levels, right? Whether it's your offense is all clicking, defense, or your special teams. You saw Dallas won Sunday, and that was on all three phases of the game. So I think, um, honestly, that offense just needs to get back into this groove, and I think that you'll see that, and they're gonna have it's gonna be an extremely lopsided win tomorrow night. So that's what I'm choosing.
Whew. Yeah, none of us making the case. I don't think there is much of a case to make. It is surprising though that they are going to start out the gate 0-2, for me at least. So interested to see what the talk will be come week 3 if the game does indeed play out this way. Next up, we've got our Sunday morning slate or afternoon, whatever you want to call it. Ravens at Bengals for the first one. Obviously, this is my team, so I will start by mentioning, um, as far as injury updates, obviously J.K. Dobbins out for the rest of the season. Marcus Williams, um, set to get an MRI, still trying to figure out whether or not he tore his pec or not. So that is not good news. And then obviously Andrew Lindbaum, our center, is still out, not confirmed whether or not he'll be able to come back. So a lot of injuries, right? Week 1, just a damn theme here for the Ravens, coming up against the Bengals, a Bengals team that really stuttered out of the gate, failed to get things going offensively, and really looked pedestrian defensively as well. So not really sure how to rate this one. I think I was confident in this sort of scenario already. But after last week, despite all of our injuries, I'm still gung ho on us being able to not only win this game, but win big on the road, right? I think in the past that hasn't been something we've been able to achieve on a regular basis. So I'm really looking forward to the possibility of that this week. Am I confident? I'm going to be honest. No. I think the same thing applies that I mentioned about the Eagles as far as being a little rusty. I thought we looked a little rusty too. And obviously, if there's ever a time we need to have it together, it's against our division rival. So I think the Bengals are going to show up in this one. I don't think they're going to throw out another damn zero like they did for the last two opening games. I think they're going to be playing with a lot to win for here, which makes them dangerous. But I'm still going with my Ravens now. I'm interested to hear where you two fall on this side of the coin on who you got.
All right, go.
Yeah, I think it's tough, right? I think it's hard to imagine the Bengals going 0-2 to start the season. But they did last year, right? Um, Honestly, I am going to give it to the Ravens. I think uh, even though their approach is going to be, humble, treat this as any other game, deep down the guys in the locker room know this is the team that we lost to, and this is the place that we lost in the playoffs. And I think that motivator is really going to kick in for them. So even if they end up winning by a field goal or by 2 points or whatever the case may be, I do think they could squeeze out a victory. To your point, Chris, the Ravens offense looked very rusty. As was the case for just a lot of teams in general, as we're going to keep reiterating. But I do think Lamar Jackson is going to have himself a day. I think something that's not really talked about is arm strength. There were a lot of throws that he made in the Texans game last week, even though he wasn't um, the best completion percentage wise. That Zay Flowers and uh, Lamar Jackson connection is legit. I think OBJ is definitely gonna probably have himself a nice little day, giving Lamar Jackson some openings underneath. And I also think the run game can really spark, whether it be Lamar Jackson himself or I think Gus Edwards, who should be taking the load, this week with J.K. Dobbins being out. So I do think the Bengals are going to keep it competitive. I don't think they're going to, you know, get completely blown out. I don't see that being possible. Um, you know, but it's something to keep an eye on. Anyways, it's very injury. So yeah, I'm gonna go with your Ravens.
Heck yeah, love to hear about the Gus Bus carrying the load. Derek, who you got?
Um, I don't even know, to be honest. I can see you can make a case for either team, honestly, with this one. Um, but I think I'm going to actually go with the Bengals with this one. I think, you're at home. You put up that embarrassing loss last week. Miles Garrett, I'm not sure if you guys saw the video, but he was actually dribbling in between his legs, messing with the offensive line, and just blew by him right at the snap. Like I can't think of a better reason to actually try and do better than
Yeah.
for that. That was an embarrassing loss. Jamar Chase said that he called them the elves, and they just lost to the elves. So I'm assuming they're gonna have a little more pride this week. And I think it's gonna be a very close game, though. I don't think this is gonna be a blowout in any way, shape, or form. But I'm gonna go ahead and just choose the Bengals with this one, mainly because I think that there's that level of pride that you need to have in this matchup. Otherwise, I don't know if they lose, if they lose this game, I can only imagine the rhetoric that's going to come out about this team after that. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to go on the side of they're going to try and have a little more pride in themselves, and that would be the thing that they kind of take personal to actually pull off a win.
I'm just glad you had to reiterate your points twice because you knew how disrespectful it was to make the
I
case,
know,
right? You
I
knew it,
know, I
so it's
know,
okay. It's
I know.
I will allow it, right? You
I
had to
know.
do what you had to do, right, in the
Yeah,
spot. I get it, but can't change the fact that I'm mad about it. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it
and
is.
Look, bro,
Next up,
it's nothing personal.
I took it personal. Okay.
I'm
Next
sorry.
up,
Yeah.
Seahawks going up. Once again, what the fuck is a Seahawk, ladies and gentlemen? Going up against the Lions of Detroit, coming off of their Super Bowl win against the Chiefs last week. Um, Seahawks obviously coming off of a disappointing week one loss to the Rams that I think nobody except for Matthew Stafford saw coming. So shout out to
Yeah.
them Rams for making that happen. But I'm gonna throw to Derrick first here, right? I'm gonna put all the pressure on you for this matchup because this is a closer felt like a closer matchup last week, right? But
Yeah.
got some more questions thrown at us to consider for this week. How you feeling about this week two matchup?
Um, to be honest, I am actually still high on the Lions. Um, and I think that they're playing at home, right?
Yep.
I'm gonna go ahead and actually choose the Lions on this one. I know, it might seem weird, but the fight that they put up against the Chiefs last week, I mean, it was impressive. Dan Campbell, I think his play calling is very, very interesting, right? Like there was I want to say it was a 4th and 1, like deep in their territory or something like that last week, and they still went for it. Got it. I mean, gutsy call. I like this team. I like this team. CJ Gardner Johnson, not so much, but the team, I like the team. I think that what they're doing with their run game, is impressive. And I hope to see more of Jameer Gibbs. I think that's kind of like one of the things I'm banking on with this matchup too, is that you're gonna see more Gibbs. Montgomery is just he's a baller though. So I don't know how you beat him out, but you just I like their dynamic running back duo, so go for it. I think they're
Yeah.
going to be able to pull this game out and actually start off 2-0. What probably wouldn't know what the answer to this question would be, but what I'm assuming this would be the first time in a very long time they've started off 2-0 if they pull this off.
It's a good question. I will effort for that while we have Matt give us our pick.
Yeah, I think honestly my points really weren't too dissimilar from yours, Derek. The Seahawks also went to Detroit last year, week 3, I believe. And I just don't see a reality where if they can beat the Chiefs that they'll somehow lose to the Seahawks of all teams. And Seahawks are a great team. I think, before the season started, there was a very strong argument to be had that they would be one of the best offenses in the NFL. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and obviously they're really great draft pick within JSN, but defensively, man, I mean did not look particularly great at all. Definitely not playing to the standard that any of us expected. I mean, you let a 6th round out of BYU pop off for 105 yards, Tutu Atwell look like a Pro Bowler, um, and you're going against a very talented Lions team. I know that you know, week one was by and large not the best game for them, but we're gonna keep saying over and over, pretty much every top tier offense looks rough. I do think the play calling is gonna evolve. I think we're gonna see a lot more play action, because that whole hey, let's go into I formation and double it off to Amon Ra on a deep out isn't gonna keep working, and I think they're gonna diversify
Mm-hmm.
the play calling. And of course, Derek, you said the best too. They had Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery, a really great one duo. Um, and like last week, the Seahawks didn't really have a great run defense, so go Detroit.
God damn, I hate being the only one that has to make the case, right? Somebody has to make the case. Um, I'm gonna go with the Seahawks here. I was not particularly impressed by the Lions' performance in Week One. I thought they shouldn't have been in a position to win that game, let alone be able to win it, right? It was a lot of weird things going on, a lot of weird Week One shit that in my opinion let the game fall in their favor. I think once again what you talked about with the Bengals, I think the Seahawks have a lot to rebound from. Like you mentioned, obviously Matt Stafford went off. I don't think that is the worst thing to look at as far as like, man, this guy beat us, just because I feel like he was due for a comeback moment. I think everyone is sort of just writing him off since obviously the performance he had last season. But nobody was expecting him to come out and win, right? So
Right. Right.
just a tough position to be in general. And I think what the key is here in this matchup against the Lions is just offense versus defense. And I think the
Hmm.
Seahawks have more of a window to sort of make things up on that side of the ball as far as matching offensive production against this Lions defense than they would have against the Rams. So I'm interested to see whether or not the Seahawks can bounce back and actually look like a formidable offense this week. If they do, I'm picking them to win, which I am here. So give me the Seahawks. I'm the only one
Wow.
picking this weird team, but I'm doing the damn thing. Next up, we have the Colts coming up against the Texans. Anthony Richardson started his first game in the NFL. Unfortunately, got hurt as well. So at the moment, it looks like he's going to be starting in this game. But obviously, once again, eyes on Minshew just in case, right? Just in case things get a little extra dicey here. But Colts versus the Texans, I'm going to lead this one off just by saying both of these teams is going to take a lot to make them look good. So I think this is going to be a messy game. I'm going to go with the Colts here just because I feel like the Colts actually believe in their ability to go far this season versus the Texans, I think, are sort of in that place where they know they're kind of be contending for one of the worst spots in the league, but also trying to get morale points wherever they could get them. I think their defense is actually better than people give them credit for. But at this stage of the game, I just think the Colts have a little bit too much to offer on offense. Um, it's not going to be a high scoring game, so I would recommend potentially sitting a couple of your Colts and Texans players, but give me the Colts here in what should be a close one.
Yeah.
So who wants to take it? Who's taking the baton, baby?
Go
All
ahead,
right.
Matt.
You want to go ahead and take it? Pause. Um, I'll I'll go with the Colts. I mean, I honestly I really don't know what else to say beyond that. Um, Anthony Richardson looked really good in his debut. Um, Accuracy needs to be, tweaked a little bit, obviously, but um, I have no faith that the Texans can really produce anything with that offense. Um, Defensively isn't actually awful. They did, fairly well against the Ravens. Um, but then again, how much of it was just the Ravens shooting themselves in the foot? You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to evaluate week one based off of that. But yeah, that's that's my choice.
I'm gonna go with the Colts as well, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if the Texans were able to pull this off. Um, it's it is gonna be a low scoring game, and of course, any in that kind of situation, anybody can win. Um, I actually think that the Texans, again, as we talked about last week, Chris. I think D'Amico Ryans is building something really, really well down there, and I would be surprised if they found a way to win this game um, under his leadership. But I'm gonna go with the Colts for safety, and I actually have a feeling that I'm gonna be wrong about this one. So I'm
Ooh.
gonna go with the I'm gonna go with the Colts. So
If we're all wrong, at least it won't cost you a point, right? That's how I try to look at these
yeah.
things
Yeah.
sometimes. Am I mad if the Seahawks cost me a point? Not really, right? I'm looking forward to that Geno bump. Next up,
Yeah.
we've got the Bears coming up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, getting them hot off of their win against the other member of the North. You love to see it. I'll start off the analysis here on this one. I think obviously besides them hanging tough in the last game and surprising some people, I think honestly their offense played out pretty predictably from what I thought, right?
Mm.
Mike Evans is going to be that guy no matter what, right? He's going to get you your 60 plus yards that you need out of your main receiver. and the offense is going to move. Is it going to be some sort of high powered, big time scoring offense? No, not at all. But it's going to be a formidable, even in my opinion, better than the bottom of the barrel offense, which is all you really need when you got a really good defense. So I'm interested. I think they still have a lot of questions to answer, especially in the secondary. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the Bears don't have the weapons to sort of answer those questions. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be having those same questions for a couple weeks now. As far as this matchup, it shouldn't be as easy for me to pick the Bucks in this one. But I feel pretty confident in going with the Bucks here. Surprising 2-0 start at the top of that division. You love to see it. But yeah, I think that's the only way it could really go. I think even if we do end up seeing a big time game from Justin Fields, I just don't see how they'll be able to make up that significant gap and score just way more than the Bucks will in this one. So give me the Bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Derrick, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat. I'm making you go second this time. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Buccaneers on this one as well. Mainly because defensively, I don't see what the Bears have to hold up. To be honest, I don't see. I could see if you make a point, for Chicago, if the Buccaneers are out a couple players on defense, but I I cannot choose the Bears in this one. Like DJ Moore was even shocked as how quick they started getting booed last week, and I think that he's gonna honestly feel that even more this week. The Bears don't have anything to contend with, like you said, and I don't see it for them. So I'm going the Buccaneers on this one, and it's not going to be a close one.
Yeah. Likewise, I even though I do think that there are a couple things. I think Matt Eberflus and Todd Bowles are two of the worst head coaches in the NFL. So you would think that the Bucks, with their roster, should annihilate the Bears, but it wouldn't surprise me if they win by such a small margin. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
forgive last week because again, week one, you're still getting things together. You have a new quarterback. Defense changed a little bit, so I can understand that. But as we saw, especially in the back end of last season, the Bucks looked awful. They did not look like a
Hmm.
playoff team. They squeezed right by because they were in the easy division. And so I think that's going to be the case. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna look up the halftime. It's going to be like 6-6 or something.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like a really
yeah,
like low scoring affair.
yeah.
But and you guys said it best. The Bears are really not a good team. Justin Fields is still a walking question mark. I don't want to write him off because we have 16 more games left, but it's just so many of his tendencies really haven't been fixed. His offensive line isn't exactly doing him justice. I mean, Darnell White looked terrible the other day. Chase Claypool, they ended up trading the 32nd pick for him. I mean, there's been footage cycling of him just being lazy, like not doing blocks, not putting in efforts on the routes, and you can't afford that. And it's
Hmm.
not everything on Matt Eberflus is kind of overrated in some respects. He never had a top 10 defense ever with his tenure in the Colts.
Hmm.
And I just don't think the defense that he wants to run meshes well with the personnel that he has because he really doesn't have the personnel to get to the passer effectively or to hold up in the secondary.
Right.
All
Yeah, it's
great
gonna be
shouts.
interesting.
It's gonna be a sad year for the Bears here. I'm anticipating. No reason to think it wouldn't be given where they were. But all things considered, I won't be surprised if shit they even end up with the first pick and go with a quarterback again. Like I won't be surprised if we end up at that level of rebuild with this team just because you gave away everything away on defense too, right? So you have nothing
Yeah.
redeemable on that side, and then you're trying to single-handedly bring back a team just on the offensive side. It's a tough way to rebuild.
Yeah,
But see,
for
even
sure.
if that were to happen, that's the thing that would, I think, confuse me because why would you go get another QB with this offensive line?
Yeah.
Like there are teams that just don't want to make the non-sexy move and just go offensive line, defensive line. They don't want to build on those lines to be able to help the quarterback. Because I guarantee, I feel like Fields can go to San Francisco, um, Baltimore, Philly. I think he can go to any of those, like stand behind any of those offensive lines and have an MVP level season, right? I think that's one of the biggest things with Chicago. They just don't want to build that line.
Yep, definitely a great shout. There's a lot of things wrong with Chicago. Trust.
You have a lot,
There's a
yes,
lot of things
yes.
going on in Chicago. But I agree. They definitely got to take the baby steps in order to make it to a point where they're crawling again at least. Next up, in my opinion, one of the most competitive games on this slate here for week 2. We've got the Chiefs on the road against the Jaguars, who came out on top of a real close division battle against the Colts in week 1. Obviously, the Chiefs were disappointed and got a big fire in their belly for this week 2 matchup, I would imagine. Chris Jones is back. He's on the field, baby. He's practicing. I saw the footage. It is real. He has signed his big contract extension, has costing him a pretty penny. So better be looking forward to producing this week against obviously a very potent offense in the Jags. This one's really fun for me, man. I could really see this one going either way. Genuinely, I will not be surprised if the Jaguars are able to pull this one out. But give me the Chiefs. I think being at full strength, all things considered, all the bumps and bruises washed away from last week. I just think they're going to be, like I said, really hungry and just looking to make up for last week, right? Um, I think this matchup is a scary one for them because we saw in that playoff game, right? Like you could have the Jaguars down and out, you could have them away up 2 scores, and they can still find a way to rally back. So once again, I think this is going to be a close matchup no matter how you slice it. I think even if one team gets out to an early lead, um, don't look for it to stay like that throughout. So I'm going with the Chiefs here, but like I said, I won't be surprised either way.
I want to make a case for the Jaguars to win this one.
Yeah, because you hate the Chiefs, I know.
No, it's not that. It's
Yeah, there definitely
I,
is
I
one.
there is a case that they can win this one, and I think that because if you're looking at the okay, take away your bias for the QBs, right? Look at the receivers. It's like lopsided. Like all the Chiefs are gonna have is Kelsey, right? Which I think by fantasy wise, he's gonna have a big game this week. But in terms of production from the receivers, I'm expecting the Jaguars to actually do significantly better than the Chiefs. It's literally just about whether the secondary for the Chiefs is going to be able to hold up or not. Um, I love the battle between Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. So I think I might take it. I might take it, bro. I might go ahead and go with the Jaguars on this one. I think that it's going to be a very close game. Um, I'm looking for Trevor Lawrence to do his thing with this one, and Calvin Ridley looked amazing last week.
Yeah,
I think that the combination of all of that, I do believe the Chiefs are gonna have a good game, but I think it's gonna be I think it's just gonna be that one of those where the Jaguars are just able to edge them out. I'm going with the Jaguars in this one.
interesting.
Crazy. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll take the point.
yeah. I'll go with the Chiefs. I think we are not going to see a performance like that on Thursday.
Right.
Kadarius is going to have his redemption. Um, I think he is going to be utilized about the same as he did for the Lions. Now, and to Derek's point, I think is a valid reason. Outside of Kelsey, what true weapons do they have? You know, I think Justin Watson is decent, and that's it. Quite honestly.
Hey, Rasheed Rice is on that list
Now,
too.
yeah, Richie Rice definitely in, but at the same time, I do think that Andy is gonna have put together like a schematics to get his. Okay, this is gonna be a dumb thing to say. I want to contextualize it. Schematics to get his guy open. Obviously, every coach wants to get a guy open, but I going into the season, I just don't trust the Jaguars' passing defense, and I do think we're just gonna see a very simple game from Mahomes. I don't think they're gonna test that secondary a lot of the time in terms of passes over 20+ yards. We're gonna see a lot of passes 10 to 15 yards. Take what the defense is giving you, get the run game going a little bit, and I think the Chiefs can come out with a victory. Now on the flip side, when it comes to the Jaguars, I think their main concern right now is mainly Chris Jones. I think I don't I don't think he's gonna get a sack. Um, I do think it's going to generate a lot of pressure because their offensive line is still a bit iffy, especially interiorly. Um, but I think if T Law just remains composed, and essentially does what he did on Sunday, they'll be fine too. But with that being said, I'll go with the Chiefs. I think they have a chip on their shoulder right now. A lot of people are talking, and I think they want to shut a lot of the haters up.
For sure. And the main thing that really pushed me over the edge, Derek, because I agree. I think it is that close of a matchup, was the I know it's the Colts defense, right? But their inability to sort of separate themselves from the Colts last week is what really kept me giving them a side eye here. And obviously, you point to KC's offense. Um, I think Indy has that same issue as far as having a lot of guys that you read their name off the stat sheet and it's just like whoo. So I'm interested to see obviously a much different person at the helm at quarterback, so it changes things. But I think with Kelsey back in the lineup, I think that helps free other guys up so that they're not as pressured, right? And hopefully that stops and prevents people from just dropping egregious passes that are right in their hands. But I won't continue to beat that dead horse. Next up, we've got the Green Bay Packers coming up against the Atlanta Falcons, two teams that their fan bases, if you ask them, are reinvigorated right now. They're ready to make a run for the long term. One of these teams have to be humbled, though, in week 2. And if I'm going with any of these teams as far as actual, oh, holy shit, this team actually might be good this season. It is the Packers. I think their defense was flying everywhere against the Chicago Bears, and obviously we're able to do a good job. But I'm interested to see as far as this week's matchup, whether or not they're able to repeat some of those things. I I really am a fan of the Jordan Love experience, right? The guy looks composed out there, didn't have his number one off read on offense, and was still able to put the team in a good position to not lose. We haven't seen him make game-winning plays yet, right? Like that is the thing that separates these quarterbacks apart, in my opinion, when you're able to make game-winning plays versus not putting your team in a position to lose. I think he's shown that he's not going to be a negative at the quarterback position, but now it's time to see whether or not he will be a positive. And I think with Christian Watson back in the lineup, that all spells good things. My eye is always on Desmond Ritter, but I think specifically in this matchup, it's really going to come down to how far he can take this offense. Obviously, we had a big showing from both these teams in the run game in week 1. So that is going to be the key determining factor here as well. And I just trust the Packers defense way more than I have any right to trust the Falcons defense. So give me the Packers here all day on the road.
Yep.
Yeah,
Pack.
I was. Oh, I'm sorry, Derek. Go ahead.
Go.
Yeah,
Oh
I
no,
was just gonna.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Sorry. Yeah, I think like, I mean, the run defense, the Packers' run defense was the second worst last year. And I do apologize. I don't have the stats from the Packers and Bears game, so I don't know how well they did at containing Justin Fields or the running backs. But seeing as how there hasn't really been much mention of it, I'm just going to assume that they did fairly well. That's really the key for the Packers to come away with a victory. Because I think the biggest problem with Arthur Smith and why I dislike him more than other people is just he doesn't have any faith in his quarterbacks to actually do anything, and it's amazing. Like they were number one. I forgot what criteria, but they were like number one in like obviously number one in rushing, but then there were like specific categories in within that stat that they excelled at, and so yeah, that's great. You love doing your outside runs. You love just chewing up the clock, but you have to understand that you have to start utilizing Kyle Pitts and Drake London for some of the best in their respective position. And if you don't have a run game to lean on, they're a really bad. Like they're an awful team, And I think it's because Arthur Smith's run first mentality instead of being a well balanced offense is really going to bite them because we're in a passing league for like a passing heavy league now, you know. And Desmond Ritter is a guy who can definitely be above average at best, But when you're being told just do your quick 2 yard dump offs and be a game manager, I just don't think that like that messes well with somebody like Desmond. I think they need him to be moving around, do bootlegs, like just do something. Like you can't keep running the ball and expect to win every single game because that's just not going to happen. Defensively though, for the Falcons, they're a much better unit. Ryan Bates was a huge pickup for them, and he's going to continue to do great things for that team. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on, but I'll go with the Packers though. Jordan Love, baby.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
going with
Desmond Ritter
Packers.
just needs to show us, right? I don't think it's just a scheme. I feel like if they had any reason to change the offense in the offseason, it would be to a more modern offense, like you suggested. I think the fact that they've kept it this double-headed run game is very clear where they think his ceiling is, and I think honestly they would benefit from
That's
being
true.
worse this year than they would from trying to contend. But Derek, sorry to cut you off. I'll let you take it over from there.
You're good, bro. I can't add anything else. The Packers are winning this game. I don't know how Atlanta's gonna go and win this one. I really don't. So let me give it to the Packers. You can't win being one dimensional like that. So
Mhm. Yeah,
so
certainly. It's a tough one. Bijan looks great though, which is
yes.
good to
Hey,
mention. Instinctually, man, the guy really knows how to find holes. Even after play starts to break down, you could tell he's making the right decisions out there to get as much yardage as possible, which you love to see from a young back. But all
Fantasy
right,
people ain't
next,
happy though.
what was that, Matt?
I was like, fantasy people ain't happy though.
Oh yeah, I mean they never will be, right? Next up, we've got the Raiders on the road against the Bills, who just got their heart ripped out from underneath them against the Jets, obviously losing in that overtime fashion there. How do you feel about this Bills team, man? Because I do not, in my opinion, there's no excuse for them losing that week 1 game. I thought obviously the interceptions was the biggest keynote of the game for Josh Allen. I believe there were 3 in total. Just a rough night as far as capitalizing, especially on deep drives, right?
yeah,
Nothing's worse, in my opinion, or more demoralizing than getting halfway down the field and then throwing an interception. It's like, man,
yeah,
we were going so far with this, and now we've set ourselves up here. Obviously, I think this is a good position for them to be in as far as who they're facing. Obviously, the Raiders coming off of a big week 1 upset against the Broncos at home, so they're looking to keep that momentum here on the road. I just like the Bills here. I think I'm never, for whatever reason, I can never pick the Bills regression correctly, right? Some games
yeah.
they're gonna show up and just not do as well, and for whatever reason, I'm always on the opposite side, right? So I could genuinely be wrong about this, and the Bills go 0-2, and I'll just be here again, like, man, they did it to me again. But I didn't think they looked that bad to warrant me picking the Raiders over them. I think pass protection is going to be sneaky, though. I think the Raiders line doesn't get enough credit as they deserve, and obviously, certain big names on that defensive line are coming back this week. So we got some problems, right? If we're Josh Allen and crew, but I think even with that, I'm still going to be picking them here. So Derrick, who you going with, Raiders or the Bills?
I'm going with the Bills, but I agree. It's confusing because Josh Allen, as great of a quarterback as he is, um, I think that week one, he was rusty, right? The team was rusty, like you've been saying, but he looked like he was in midseason form where it was like that. You know how we talk about it every year. Is like this one part where he just sputters. He goes down, then he picks it right back up and gets right back to being Josh Allen. Um, I'm be honest, if this is that part of the year for him right now, that's gonna be hilarious as hell. Especially given the fact that the rest of the year he'll look like Josh Allen going into the playoffs. I think that'd be hilarious. But I'm going with the Buffalo Bills here. I think they actually surprised me. Outside of the loss, they surprised me. Um, because we've discussed it about on here before, but they actually utilized the run game. Like it wasn't just like the running backs being out there for for show. Like James Cook was actually going, right? And I can appreciate that they have the run game actually kind of like working for them now. So as long as Allen can put everything together, and I think a couple of those interceptions, he just threw the ball like way off target for no reason, and put the ball in a tough position to be caught. Especially that one to Diggs in the end zone where he was double teamed, right? Like it was just those kind of like those plays where it's just like you wish you could get those back. But if Allen gets that together, I actually expect them to be really good this week. Um, I love what Kincaid did too. Like this the team the different pieces look really good, right? Milano came up with an interception Monday too. I think they did a really good job. It's just that Allen just wasn't playing like Allen, and that's the thing that sucks about that. So I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. You cannot have a game like that, especially if you're Josh Allen, and not bounce back the next week. So give me the Bills. I don't care who the Raiders have. I don't see them going to Buffalo and winning that game.
Well, I'm actually gonna be devil. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I think Josh is an example of he's the next Brett Favre. Honestly, I don't think there's any other quarterback to compare him to. He's gonna make a lot of bonehead decisions, and then he's gonna make plays that will make your mouth drop. Um, I think defensively, great. Derrick, don't you dare. Don't you?
Continue.
Um, but I think defensively they definitely surprised me. Their pass rush look fairly dominant against the Jets without Von Miller. Now whether or not that carries over next week remains to be seen because their offensive line actually isn't like the Raiders offense isn't actually that bad. It's their defense that's a huge red flag. Um, but yeah, just like to summarize, Josh knows he messed up big time. He cost him the game. He's gonna, go back to his former self, and then yeah, they go away with a victory at home, and we'll see if we talk about the Bills positively moving forward.
Hopefully, nothing but positive things coming out of week 2. Next up, it's time to talk about a different kind of sadness. We've got the 4 o'clock window begins on Sunday. We've got the Chargers coming up against the Titans of Tennessee. I'm going to let you lead the dance with this one, Matt. First of all, please talk to us about what happened and what went wrong in week 1 for the Chargers, and how do you think you guys bounce back here in week 2?
We put Khalil Mack on Tyreek Hill in the opening drive of the game.
It's the only way.
That epitomized. I don't think I had to even go into detail about that. That epitomized our defense. It was just an atrocious defensive effort. Staley has to go. I think offensively we got something going with the running game. I think Eckler was over 100 yards. Joshua Kelly was around 90 or so. And so yeah, it really sucked. But I think going against the Titans should be good. Should be good for us. I think Mike Williams definitely having a day. The Titans' passing defense doesn't look particularly great. And ultimately, what it really boils down to is if Austin plays. He's questionable. I think looking at like the official injury report, Joey Bosa's questionable. Eric Kendry's questionable. Dan Henley is questionable. So defensively, I think we're gonna have a few problems, especially when it comes to the run defense. But I don't know, man. I just don't see a reality where we drop to 0-2, especially against Ryan Tannehill. you know, like no matter who they and we also beat them the last time as well, in a match of last year. So I think we should be okay. It just depends on which Chargers team decides to show up because I don't know what the hell this team does week to week, and it's depressing. But
All great shouts. Honestly, I was surprised that the Tannehill to DeAndre Hopkins connection was as good as it was in week one. I think the passing game as a whole still looks terrible, right? But at least you got that connection going with one of your receivers. Obviously, looking to spread that out a little bit more if they hope to win in week two. But I am in agreement with you. I think coming up against the Dolphins week one made it such a hard and difficult thing. I think against most teams with the offense you guys had last week, you should be able to come out with the dub. So I'm liking the Chargers' chances here against the Titans, and I think here's my bold prediction here. Um, I'm wondering if the Titans are trying to be good. Um, it may sound crazy with how close they played it with the Saints, but I won't be surprised if they end up being in the bottom five at the end of the season, depending on how things go these next couple of weeks. Just because like what is the merit at this point of trying to contend if this is the spot your roster's in. I think their defense is always going to be super solid, and if there's any chance this week that they want, it'll be on that side of the ball, just keeping things close with the Chargers. But yeah, not likely. I'm going with the Chargers here as well.
You should be
Take us
going with the
home, Derek.
Chargers. Yeah, you should be going with the Chargers. But the thing about it is, I can also see where if that run defense is lacking, Henry is going to have a day. And if Henry's having a day like that, then guess who's open? DeAndre Hopkins. I like. I think I'm gonna go on the edge again. I think I'm gonna do the unthinkable. I think I might be taking the Titans with this one.
Wow.
I think so. If Eckler is out, if Bosa is out, I I don't know, man. Like those are big hits to the team.
yeah. I mean, in fairness too, we also didn't generate much pressure with Joey Bosa
There.
against Tua last week too. So no, it's
Yeah.
it's something I wrestle with. I mean, I want to root for my team. I'm gonna hope they do well, but I think what you're saying is definitely fair.
Yeah. They should win the game, but I think I'm gonna take the Titans with this one.
That's
Damn.
fair. I respect it.
Hey, either next week Derek's gonna look like a genius, or I'm gonna be talking my shit next week. But I can't
Like
wait to find out which one it is. Go ahead, Matt.
I was like I said, I don't know what Chargers team is going to show up next week. So I
Yeah.
honestly, they're choosing the Titans. At least that you know what you're getting with the Titans.
Do
You
you?
know, I mean, I
You
would
know
say,
you're not getting good shit like that. That's what you know.
but I mean, run defense is still iffy for us too. So if Ryan Tannehill is going to be absolute poo poo, then hand it up to one of the best running backs in the league, and get it going. So it's not like they're gonna have a passing attack. And I hope they don't have a passing attack because J.C. Jackson's gonna get burnt like he did. But anyways, next matchup before I get depressed.
Yeah, I was about to say this is turning into a sadness hedge real quick, right in front of our eyes. The next matchup we've got Niners at Rams in that 4 o'clock window, of course. A nice little divisional game, right? Makes things interesting, makes things exciting. Um, I think even with all things considered and the way they were looking last in week one and how surprising it was for everyone, I would say there's no shot that I'm picking the Rams over the Niners here. I'm enamored, man. I think Brock Purdy is the truth. I'll never forget. I got some things echoing in my ears about how the 49ers were going to look week one, and then it just turned out they looked 10 times better. Honestly came away very impressed by their offense, and then obviously their defense is going to be monstrous no matter who you're facing up against. So um, give me the Niners here, and I would say this one doesn't even very similar to that Steelers game. It's not even close.
Yeah, yeah, I'm going Niners as well. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
Niners.
know.
I don't know. It's either I don't know or I do know. I can't tell which one, but
Yeah.
convicted nonetheless, literally.
Go
Yeah.
CMC, man. Pop
Yeah.
out for my fantasy.
Oh
Amen.
yeah, that's death, taxes, and CMC. As long as he's healthy, right? He's
Mhm.
gonna come through for us. Um, as far as this Rams team though, is obviously there were two breakout stars at wide receiver that nobody saw coming in week one with Puka Nakua as well as Tutu Atwell. Do you guys see long term upside for any of those two guys, if any? For me, I would say Puka Nakua. Obviously, the opportunity isn't going to be in there, but long term. But I think he looked very similar to Cooper Cup in the same role. Like I think he was able to give serviceable production there in that same sort of explosive receiver role. He isn't the fastest guy out there, but all things schemed right, looks like he's going to be a player. So I would say Puka Nakua if asked. What about you guys?
Yeah. I mean, if Cup is out for the next couple of weeks anyway, I think they're those are two hot hands to ride with. I'm not sure in terms of the long term aspect of them, but like you said, Nakua for sure. I think that's going to be a very interesting. Um, it's going to be a very intriguing thought to see what happens, because if you decide at some point um, to break this team up, would you make sure you keep him? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be one of those pieces that you look at and say, you know what, we can rock with him. Um, I don't know. I think it's very interesting to see, though. I mean, those guys stepped up, so we'll see them do it again. If they do it again this week, I might have to pick one of them up. I actually
Yeah.
have a pending trade right now. Someone's trying to trade me Nakua, and I forgot who else to get Gibbs, and I'm like, right now, no, I'm not buying that high, but
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see what happens with Nakua for sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's very random. I mean, he just casually broke the the
Yeah,
rookie, was it the rookie record, right? For most completions or most catches, right? Was it most
Yep.
catches and most yards? Yeah, so he looked he looked really sharp. Yeah, I might have to pick him up for fantasy. Gonna keep an eye on that. Keep an
Hey,
eye on
the
that fella.
first 4 weeks at least, right? That's
yeah,
when you stream them, if ever. So yeah, just funny.
Mhm.
Figured I'd ask that. Before we move on, next up we've got the Giants at the Cardinals here. Cardinals sneaky competitive out there against the Commanders last week. Kept it real close in that one. I honestly, I'm fucking doing it. I'm swinging for the fences here. I really did not like what I saw out of the Giants in week one, and I think a demoralized Giants team against a motivated, for whatever reason, Arizona offense was exciting to see. Shout out to Zach Ertz. I know that brings a nice smile to Derrick's face as well to see Zach Ertz producing at this level. I think this is the easiest L to pick as far as like, you know what? Um, gotta assume the Giants bounce back here, but give me the fucking Cardinals, bro. They looked feisty as hell last week, and I think the Giants putting up a nothing burger is a little bit more significant than people give it credit for. So, if Derrick's taking shots all day, I might as well take one of my own. Give me the Cardinals. Matt, how you feeling?
I'm going with the Giants. I just don't see a reality where after having that absolutely embarrassing performance that they dropped to 0-2 because of the Arizona Cardinals. I think we're gonna see. I think Ojolari is out right now. I think he suffered an injury during practice, or I think one of their cornerbacks did recently. So that's something to keep an eye on. Because Marquise Brown, add him in your fantasy. Because Marquise Brown might have a nice little day. Zach Ertz should as well. I think he's coming back from injury too. But I think offensively we're gonna see hopefully Darren Waller out there. I know he's dealing with hamstring issues. I think Paris Campbell's had redemption. He had a couple drop passes. Jalen Hyatt had one right in the middle of the field. So I don't know. I they're gonna win. They should win. But to your point, Chris, is any given Sunday, man. And honestly, with the way week 1 went, it wouldn't surprise me if the Cardinals somehow make the Super Bowl with Jonathan Gannon. It won't happen. But at this point, it's a matter of who wrote that script.
Anything is possible.
I don't even know, man. I don't trust Jonathan Gannon at all. And the weird thing about it is there are former Eagles players on this team that I know, like Kazir White, the linebacker, flying all over the place last week. I can see why you picked them, Chris. But I can't ignore the coaching matchup. Brian Dabble is not losing to Jonathan Gannon. Like, that's not happening.
Which one of you guys taking the bus? Which one of you guys took the bus here this morning? Anybody saw that clip of Jonathan Gannon talking to the Arizona players?
Yeah,
and it looking like that, bro. That was so bad.
Weird, man.
One of the biggest, most cringeworthy things is that when coaches do like that grind hustle mindset, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You just stop. Like,
yeah.
If I'm in that room with Jonathan Gannon, bro, I'm walking out and requesting a trade.
Oh, for sure. Who is their quarterback right now?
Joshua Dobbs.
Yeah, Joshua Dobbs.
And then Clayton Tune is their backup. He was the rookie they picked up.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going the Giants on this one. I can't see them losing to the Cardinals. Like, the Cardinals are going to be feisty based off of players, not coaching.
Yeah.
And I'm going with them on this one because I think that they're due. Like, last week was trash. Last week was horrible. I didn't think that would happen. I think I picked the Giants last week over the Cowboys. But I'm gonna choose it. I'm gonna pick the Giants over the Cardinals. And if they lose to the Cardinals, I'm not picking the Giants another game this year. That there is no way that they should lose to the Cardinals at any way, shape, or form should they be losing. And I love Zach Ertz. I love Kazir White. I can't choose them. I like Marquise Brown is gonna do a good job though. He's gonna do a good job. But I can see where Saquon like goes off in this game, and he needs to go off for Daniel Jones to actually do something, because there is no way the Giants can sit here and say that they were justified in paying Daniel Jones what they paid him this offseason. That is atrocious. That makes absolutely no sense to do. So I'm hoping they decide to play this week though. I'm hoping they decide to play, because if they don't, that's going to be a very interesting turnaround.
I do want to add a little fun fact. So I faced off against somebody in fantasy, and he had Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, and Brandon Ayuk. So Tyreek Hill obviously popped off with his 40. And he put in T. Higgins over Brandon Ayuk. Yep. And to top everything off, the kicker was that he is a 2 quarterback league. It's quarterback and then quarterback flex. He had Daniel Jones as his second quarterback.
Ooh.
And I ended up winning because Danny Dimes decided to help the Cowboys out. And so I just want to say to him personally, Daniel, if you ever have a chance to watch this, I love you, man. I mean, you were really bad with all due respect. It's not really your fault because your offensive line gave you, pass protection for like 0.01 seconds. But you helped me. And I appreciate you. I feel like I should have called him up or something. I'll say, hey man, if you wanna I'll take out to dinner sometime. I'll treat you to a nice dinner for helping me out. You know what I mean? I appreciate you.
I love it. I love it. Next up, we've got the Jets coming up against the Cowboys in Dallas. We've got problems, ladies and gentlemen. If we are not secure in our quarterback situation, I wonder how intact things are going to be looking by the come the end of this game. I know how angry it makes Derrick to talk and say good things about this Cowboys team, but I think this matchup is only going to call for a lot of analysis on that side of the ball. Um, I think the Jets can really make this game interesting if they're able to make Dak earn it. I think um, in that first game, just field positioning and everything really came super easy, right? I think in this one, if they're able to make things tough on Dak, they could really start the problems there, right? I don't think that the Jets offense is going to be cooking anybody in at any time soon, given what's going on there. But I can see scenarios too where the Cowboys offense doesn't do the thing and this becomes a much closer game than it needs to be. I'm not going to bank on it though. I'm picking the Cowboys here in what should be a blowout for them. I just think even before this matchup becoming so unwinnable with Aaron Rodgers going down, I think I still would have picked them then. So no reason to not pick them now. Give me the Cowboys over the Jets. What are you thinking,
Yeah.
Derrick?
Yeah, I think the Cowboys should win this game. But I think the one thing I'm looking at though is that defense for the Jets. The Jets actually defensively, the Jets looked phenomenal. I don't think that they're getting as much credit as they should get going against the Bills like that. But I think that Quentin Williams,
Monster.
that boy got fast, man. He got fast, and I think that that's going to be a very interesting matchup again with Dak. The one thing that I do think is that this is going to be a low scoring game. I think that it's going to be based on whose defense stands up the most. To be honest, and this is not a biased opinion, it's literally just about what I've seen. The Cowboys, like, this is their time of year when they win, right? And I think that they should pull this game off. But in all honesty, I believe that they're a little overrated. Just because, yeah, I know the shutout and all that stuff, but I think they're a little overrated in certain aspects, especially on offense. Dak does not look the part. And to be honest, if you're looking for Dak to win you the game, I'm not gonna bet on it most times, right? So I'm gonna take the Cowboys here, but I do not feel confident in it. To be completely honest, I think that the Jets defense is going to. I think it could possibly win in this game.
For sure.
I think that defense looked phenomenal, and especially again Quentin Williams. We're not even talking about South Gardner yet, right? But I do believe that he played a very good game as well. I'm impressed by the Jets defense, to be honest. So I think they could actually hold the Dallas Cowboys off and win this. I would love to see it, to be honest. I would love to be wrong about this about this pick. But I'm gonna go ahead just for safety, and I'm gonna pick the Cowboys in this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets pull this one off.
Yeah. I mean, Derrick, you said everything to a T. Basically, what I was gonna say, I think, is gonna be a field position battle. And I think this might be the most boring game on the schedule. So, if anybody is anticipating a high scoring affair, between two of the best defenses in the league as of now, um, you are gonna be in for a treat because that game is gonna last a long time. And I think to your point, I think Dak himself did not look good. I mean, he, his accuracy is a huge problem, and some of the throws that he missed, I know people are gonna say week one. It's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. And as the weeks progress, that's gonna come to bite him. Especially you're going against and you're in a tough division because the division is still competitive outside of the Giants. We'll ignore them, but I'll just put it this way, Derek. When your team gets 4 picks on deck, just be ready for all the Cowboys fans to talk about how should have been a flag or no, you guys are cheating and you guys don't deserve to win the division. So just be ready for that.
Those little cry fests are like it's like Christmas. It happens every year. So I'm waiting for it to happen. It's just a matter of time.
You love to see a good tear in your rival fan base's eye. You love to see it. Next up, the final in our 4 o'clock window on Sunday, we've got the Commanders coming up against the Denver Broncos. Just the mid bowl, right? The ultimate mid off. Who could be the most mid this week 2 matchup will let us know. I think the Commanders obviously are trying everything they can to try to turn things around. From what I saw, I think offensively they're still not clicking the way you would expect them to come midseason form. So I think there is some um, upward trajectory on that side of the ball. As far as their defense, man, if Josh Dobbs is cooking the way he was cooking last week, I have a hard time seeing a lot of teams just outright stopping them. What makes the difference here is usually isn't the biggest factor, right? When you all things considered, but I think it is the Broncos elevation and being at home is what's going to make the difference here. I think the Commanders are a team that look to play with pace in general. And it might be against their interest in this one. I think it's not like the Broncos are a super fast team either. I just feel like the longer their defense could stay on the floor in general, the better it is for them as a team. And all things just point to um, things being pretty rough on the offensive side of the ball for the Commanders, at least to start, considering they're in this mile high stadium, right? I think I wasn't I wasn't blown away with what we saw from Sean Payton's offense in week 1, but I think they were able to get things rolling in the right direction. I think still we need to see Mims have a role in this offense right now. There is no role for your rookie receiver, and that's always a tough position to be, right? You want to focus on upside here, and I think Cortland Sutton does have good upside in this offense, but without Jerry Judy, right? We're steps away from being at a full passing game on offense. So it's going to take the defense to carry in this one. And I like them to do it. Give me the Broncos at home. Matt, how you feeling?
Yeah, the same way, brother. I think the Commanders' offensive line was not it was very disappointing. I expected them to be a slightly better unit going into the season, but I mean they were struggling against outside of Kaiser because Kaiser Wright is an edge rusher, right, Derek?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Linebacker.
So outside of
linebacker.
the linebacker, okay.
Yeah.
But it's usually set up on the edge.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
so
I don't know what he's doing in Arizona, but yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So I don't want to disrespect Kaiser when I say this, but their defense, especially that defense line, has a bunch of no names. So they were getting to Sam Howell. Now you're going against a Broncos defensive line that for the past few seasons has been very good. And that's really what it's going to be. I also stand corrected. This is probably going to be the most boring game of the 4 o'clock window here. Yeah, I'll go with the Broncos. I think Russell looks a little bit lost, but I think at some point they're going to have to. They have to stop making him a pocket passer. I want to play out of structure and bomb it 50 yards downfield on a go route. Those are basically exact words that Richard Sherman said on this podcast, and I agree with it. They'll get it together, and the Commanders will still be the Commanders, a team with potential that doesn't live up to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they're in Denver. I don't expect them to travel well. Not that high up. Nope. Give me the Broncos. I don't expect and I think McLaurin is still dealing with his toe injury, so I don't see him showing up big time in this game either. So yeah, give me the Broncos in this one.
Yeah. He was non-existent last week.
Yep. I love it. And we move on to prime time. The Dolphins in New England, right? There's some interesting little wrinkles there. But Dolphins at the Patriots, giving all things considered and how we were looking after week one, Patriots honestly were better than I thought they would be. Let's be as real as possible. Better than I thought they would be, especially on offense. I think there is a lot to be learned still as far as getting their scheme down pack and what they plan to do on offense. And I think it all starts with Juju, right? From there, obviously Kendrick Bourne is another viable pass catcher for them too. But just in general, I think if Juju's not able to get things started early, it means bad things for this Patriots team. And if that's who you're relying on, it means bad things even more so. So I think defensively, we could be in a weird situation where somehow Belichick just figured out the number, right? And then sort of lays out the blueprint for the league on how to deal with this defense. This juggernaut on offense that is the Dolphins. But I don't see that happening. I just think everything is too fresh and too new. Maybe the second game in the season, if they were to play each other again, I may feel a little bit different. I just think at this point, nobody's going to be able to keep up with the Dolphins, especially if Tua's clicking the way he was week one, and their defense is formidable enough to give the Patriots enough issues that they're not keeping up at that same rate, right? So I'm going to go with the Dolphins pretty confidently here on the road.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Dolphins as well, but I will say, watching week one though, it does look like the Patriots look like they have an identity again. And I don't think there can be any more questions. Like, I think Mac Jones right now is the guy, right? Like, I think it would be disrespectful to continue to question his security at this point, right? He looked like he has this thing right now, and whether he's able to deliver and build up in the future is yet to be seen. But I think for now, there's no need to have any more conversations about whether they need to get someone else or something like that. I think Mac Jones is the guy right now. They look good. They did look good. I was surprised, to be honest, that they did it like that. But yeah, there's no way that they're winning this game against the Dolphins. I do think, isn't Mike Gesicki in New England right now?
That's right.
So I want to predict that I think we'll see a gritty from him. But that's about it. I'm not expecting anything crazy with this game from the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm going with the Patriots on this one. Look, I think the Patriots are legit. Their offense looks night and day. They're running it with efficiency. Mac Jones outside the pick six, Darius Slay was very accurate on the day. They couldn't get the run game going, unfortunately. But Ramondre Stevenson looked to be a nice little safety option, especially near the latter half of the game. Um, um, just to, again the field goal range, and they should have won against Philly. But penalties and obviously the unfortunate 4th-14 incompletion that could have allowed Mac to take food shots into the end zone really screwed them over. But you look at what the Dolphins did last week defensively. I don't expect them to make any significant improvements at this point of the season. And the run defense looks very questionable right now, as you guys know. And so if they get the run game going and they're just chewing clock, keeping momentum in their favor, silencing the home crowd, I think they can come away with a victory. And I also think the defense has the right personnel to handle, Jada Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who, just because of their skill sets, they're going to obviously make plays. But I don't think Tua is going to have another 400-yard day and, 3 or 4 touchdowns. I think the defense is definitely going to handle the Dolphins, and they're actually going to get to the quarterback this time around, too.
Damn, just hot taking it around here. I love it though. Somebody had to do it, and damn it, it was Matt. So shout out to you. Um, for whatever reason, we have multiple Monday night games. Is this a thing now? Is this going to be this
I pray to
way
God
from
it's
now
not.
on?
Is
Yeah, well,
every week too.
we've got 2 Monday night games. The first being the Saints coming up against the Carolina Panthers. Um, Frankly, didn't like what I saw out of either of these teams. Honestly, um, Panthers played a good first half, but after that, kind of fell apart against the Falcons here. And the Saints were playing it tough with the Titans the entire time, but it was the absolute opposite of a slugfest, right? It was a
Mhm.
it was a musket war. And unfortunately, the Saints came out on top of that one. So, as far as how I'm feeling about this one, I'm not feeling confident, like with whoever I go with here. But just give me the Saints on the road. I think they have the better defense, and it's ultimately going to come down to this with 2 offenses that I think are going to struggle to score. So, I'll take the Saints on the road.
Yeah,
What you
I'm gonna
thinking,
say
Matt? I'm gonna force you. I'm gonna
what's that?
force Matt to go first. Sorry about that, Derrick.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Um, I'll go with the Panthers actually. They had the Saints number last season. Um, and obviously to your point, Chris, I'm sure Derek is going to cover the exact same. Both teams were very unimpressive last week. Um, and honestly, my biggest concern for Bryce Young is the offensive line. He's definitely somebody who can stay in the pocket and is willing to take hits. But hits like that can really you know lower the amount of time you have in this league. So I think they want to try and avoid that. I think they will. Hayden Hurst seems to be his number one option on that team right now. I think Adam Thielen and DJ Chark were both out last week, if I stand correct. So I believe Adam Thielen is planning to return for this game. So at least he has another one of his receiving options back as well. And then when it comes to Derek Carr, great dude. Quarterback wise, not so much. I don't, even though he didn't have an awful performance, I don't think he had one that made you go, "Oh my goodness, he's the Saints ticket to the Super Bowl." You know what I mean? He
Mhm.
he's I and that Panthers defense is sneakily good. Very aggressive. Flies around the field, and I think Derek is gonna have himself a handful.
I like it. I like it. So Derek is now the tiebreaker. Who you got, Derek?
Yes, sir. I'm going with the Saints. Um, you just have a more experienced quarterback right there. I think that's what it's going to come down to. Um, there's nothing else I can say after that. I think y'all made every point. I think the Saints are just going to win this game. It's a division rival. These two are actually, I like when they go against each other. It's always a fun game. So I'm looking forward to it. But I think the Saints are going to pull this one out.
I like it. Our final Monday night game of the week, the evening game. We've got the Browns coming up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another division rivalry game, which you love to see. Um, I really like how the Browns looked, obviously getting a big upset win against the Bengals on the road as well. No, no, at home, sorry. Going on the road now against the Steelers, who just got torched on the road against the Niners. Um, really bad showing for them on that side. As far as the way these two teams match up, I think this is also going to be a defensive slugfest here. I think it's really going to come down to who's able to get better things going on offense because, in my opinion, both of these defenses should have a good week. Um, if I feel more confident on how anyone's clicking right now, it would have to be the Browns. Um, but I won't be surprised if the Steelers pull out a like close, gritty win at home either. So I'm kind of nervous about this one. But I'm gonna allow the week one vibes to sway me a little bit, and I think I'm gonna go with the Browns here.
Yeah. I think the Browns are going to win this one. One thing that will probably help you feel a little bit better, Chris, Deontay Johnson is out. Um, so I think that,
With the hammy.
yeah, I think that if I'm not mistaken, I think he might be out for a couple of weeks. So them that should make you feel better with your pick. But the Browns are winning this one. I think Deshaun Watson is going to have himself a game. So it's going to be an interesting. This, like you said, this 2 game Monday night thing. I'm not feeling it, but um, this one will probably be the more interesting game. Just in theatrics, so I might stay up and watch it. But yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think the Browns gonna pull this one out.
Yeah, fantasy wise, I don't like that, right? Kind of really sweating
Yeah,
it out for Monday. It feels weird.
yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah, I
Matt, who
think
you got?
AFC North games are so difficult to predict. Because they're always slugfest, or honestly, Chris, I'm going to use that, or musket wars, or what was it you said, musket, what was it? Musket duels, or whatever you want to call it. I'll go with the Browns. I think their defense looked incredible last week. Steelers defense not so much, and I think Deshaun will pull it together eventually. Um, he just looks like somebody who's playing without confidence right now. And so I don't know if because of that, because of their win on Sunday, excuse me, that's gonna make them put together the pieces to go back to his former self. I think he's facing off against what should be a good defense, So I don't know if we're gonna like how much he's gonna improve from one to now. But they have a great running game to lean on too. I mean, Nick Chubb is no joke. I do think Elijah Moore, they're utilizing him very interestingly last week. I think he even put him in a running back position at one point in the game. Mari Cooper does no wrong either. Um, because they have a really old Patrick Peterson so roaming out there. So yeah, should be a good one for the Browns. But I do have a
Yeah,
question though.
go ahead.
For you guys want me asking. Um, do you guys think the Browns are actually legit?
I'll say it again. I said it already. I think there's a real good chance for every team in the AFC North to make the playoffs, just because I think that's how strong the division is. Now, will I be shocked if that doesn't happen? No. But I think there's a real good chance. Now, if we're talking about like serious contender, I don't have them there just yet. I think it's games like this, right, that will really show us how serious they are. I'm honestly surprised that all of us picked the Browns here just because I felt like any dog shot with a divisional game isn't a bad shot to take, in my opinion. But yeah, man, I think right now they're looking good. I'm interested to see whether or not their offense gets clicking at a high level because if they do, then teams really have a problem when they're facing them as far as game planning and figuring out the plan of attack, so to speak. But until then, I think they're a little one dimensional at the moment. How about you, Derek? How you feeling?
Um, I never know what to think with the Browns. Like every time I feel like I can actually buy in, I get a glimpse of what it's like to be a Cowboys fan. It's just a letdown, and I don't want to. I don't want to buy in. So I'm at this point where I'm just kind of like, it is what it is. Like they're the Browns. If they pull something off, they pull something off. If they don't, we're not shocked. That's just where I am right now. I'm like in between. I don't know what to think about them though. They should be good though. They should be, and like the Cowboys, when they should be good, they're just
Flops.
Atrocious.
yeah.
Yeah, they flop.
I can't. Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely agree with you guys. Perhaps it's a bit too early to ask that question, but on paper they have a very good looking roster. So, we'll see. Come week 8 or week 9 if we're gonna think of the Browns in just a positive light. I'll put it
Right,
that way.
right.
I agree. Let's talk about overachievers here from last week before we get out of here. Is there any name, anybody particular that sticks out to you as far as being the sort of performer of the week when it came to week 1 and really bringing their team over the top? Anyone come to mind for you guys?
Um, sorry, I'm
I got.
actually gonna take a look.
I have a couple. Um, I think you had to speak about Tua. I think you have to speak about Micah Parsons. I think you have to speak about Jake Elliott, the kicker for Philly. Um, those are
Save,
some
yeah.
really long kicks, like so I don't I think those are the three that immediately come to mind for week 1 for me.
I like it.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
Um, it's funny because like think about fantasy, like makes you realize how many freaking people play in the NFL, play in the NFL. Um, honestly, I'll go with my boy Jahan Dotson. Honestly, he dropped, I think it was like 9 or 10 points this season. So I think he's a sleeper. I think as the season progresses, him and Howell are going to develop a better connection than him with McLaurin. So he's definitely something to keep an eye on. And Sam Laporta, for sure. I know I'm technically using guys that are on my team, but Sam Laporta definitely looked like a nice little safety net for Goff when people were open downfield. And in hindsight, even if he's, last week he was 5 for 37. That's, at least in the league diamond, that's worth 8 points. So that's nothing to take your hat off on, or is that even the phrase? Yeah,
I
but
like it. I
Yeah.
like it. I think there was a lot of random ones that for me, the one I would go with is Tyler Algier. Just not expecting that at all, right? You get a first round running back. You think it's gonna be their show, right? But he was able to show out, get I think over 60 yards and touchdown. So I think it's very clear that that's the direction they're going to keep going in Atlanta, which I do not mind. I think it works. So why break apart something that works? We just got to get that pass offense going, and
yeah.
we should be in a better
Yeah.
spot for sure.
I think even Brandon Ayuk was a huge surprise. I know a lot of people benched him in favor of I know for a fact like a
I
T
did.
Higgins or yeah like another
I didn't.
wide receiver too. And yeah, he did way better than anybody expected. I expected him to be silent, and he did the opposite of that. So if you started him, I'm sure he helped you win your matchup. If you benched him, my condolences.
Yeah.
That's
Sincerely.
me.
I will
If I would
say
have benched him, I would have had the most points week 1. I still won, thankfully, but I would have had the most points. What were you about to say,
Yeah.
Derek?
wow. Yeah, no, I think one other one for me is, especially if you're playing IDP league, Jalen Carter specifically, for as little as he
Mm.
played, I mean, his impact was truly felt. And I think with Fletcher Cox being out, we're gonna see the shift to him a lot faster than people may have expected. Jalen Carter, I think, is another impact player for me.
Heck
Jordan
yeah,
Addison too.
don't doubt him. Yeah, Jordan Addison did really good week 1 too. Didn't
Yeah.
expect him to have that much of an impact early on. A lot of good rookies producing, which you love to
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's always kind of taken for granted whenever you pick somebody with a good draft pick that they're gonna do what they need to do out there.
Oh
And
yeah.
trust
Mm-hmm.
me, shout out my guy Alex Leatherwood. There's nothing guaranteed in this league, no matter where you get picked. So always
Yes,
good
sir.
to see those rookies ball out. But with all that being said, we are done. We are through. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out with the sideline guys as always for our week 2 predictions. This was a ball. So before we get out of here, Matt, why don't you tell the people where they can find you?
Yeah, of course. You can find me over on Instagram, Matt_T 29. Thank you guys so much for having me. I love getting a chance to talk football. And yeah, obviously to be able to do it with you guys. It's always a pleasure. I love doing this stuff with you. And of course, make sure you follow the OTS Media brand on all platforms. Because these two put together some really great podcasts. They work their asses off to help deliver you guys this content that we hope you love. So thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Hey, Matt,
Yes,
just
sir.
making my job easier. You love to see it. Thank you, man. Derrick, why don't you tell them where they can find you as well?
Yeah, follow me at Derrick_OTS. That's DERRICK, the black way to spell it. And like Matt just said, follow the brand. Most importantly, at OTS Media Co. All social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. Hit that like button, subscribe, and notification bell. Got a lot of great stuff coming, so please check it out.
Yes, sir. And you could find me at Negrong MMA on Twitter as well as the good old Tiki Taki. You could also find me on Instagram at Chris Negrong _. But with all that being said, can't wait to see you guys again for week 3. But we got to leave you as always with the good old see you later. Peace.
Peace.